Hello again, everyone. Welcome to Washington Gun Law TV. I am Washington Gun Law President William Kirk. Thanks for joining us. That is beautiful Spokane, Washington, right behind me. Somewhere over there is Gonzaga University, where I got my law degree. Go Zags. Hey, as many of you may know, the current presidential administration is hell-bent on putting every single FFL out of business. Any simple little clerical error can be plugged into a system now called Spartan, and shockingly, the system's just going to spit out a result that says, go ahead and revoke the FFL. We've done multiple videos on several lawsuits that are going around right now with ATF zero tolerance policy, because as we know, they have been incredibly successful at shutting down a tremendous amount of FFLs nationwide and getting even more just to quit before they shut them down. Well, along comes a Senate bill out of the United States Senate that may actually try to address this problem and may actually try to save the FFL industry. It's a wonderful piece of legislation. We don't get to talk about good legislation here very often, so we figured we'd do that today. So today, let's spend a few minutes and let's talk about the bill that could actually save the FFL industry. You know, I bet you wish you could go and do this every day, but you don't, do you? And I imagine you wish your groups looked a lot like this, but they don't, do they? No, instead they have a tendency to look a little bit more like this. Plus, you might have noticed that this stuff ain't very cheap anymore. Or, just hear me out, you can use your Mantis X10 Elite training system like I do. Listen, this thing is way too easy to use. Step 1, install the Mantis training app to your smartphone. Step 2, install the Mantis X10 Elite training system to your firearm. It's as simple as this. Step 3, open up the training app, select your program, and away you go. Listen, you can practice in the comfort of your own home. This app will store all the data. It will tell you what you're doing wrong, what you're doing right. It will tell you what you're improving on and what you need to work on. The best part is, all you need is your firearm and the Mantis X10. You don't need any ammunition, and you don't need any expensive membership to a range or a gun club. And right now, if you want to check this revolutionary system out, all you got to do is click on that link right up there. For more information, visit our good friends at mantisx.com. Okay, here's what we're talking about today from beautiful Spokane, Washington. We're talking about Senate Bill 3812, sponsored by Senator Jody Ernst. What is Senate Bill 3812? Well, it's got a fancy little title to it. It's called this: Fighting Irrational Regulatory Enforcement to Avert Retailers' Misfortune, or better known as the FIREARM Act. There is a companion bill in the United States House of Representatives. That's House Bill 7471. Now, what this bill would do, if enacted into legislation, would create safe haven so that if there are FFLs who've made honest clerical mistakes, rather than just getting shut down by the Biden administration and the ATF, no, they will actually have an opportunity to work with regulators to make sure that the problems are solved and most importantly, avoid revocation of the FFL license. Because as we know, with this current zero tolerance policy that's going on with the Biden administration, they are shutting down an FFL about once every 2 days in the United States right now. Now, according to those who are supporting this legislation, they support the legislation as follows. Senator Joni Ernst's FIREARM Act will help restore confidence that the ATF will fulfill its mission as a regulatory agency over the manufacture and sale of firearms, rather than being used as a political tool by special interests. Under the Biden administration, the firearm and ammunition industry has seen the ATF turned into a sledgehammer to carry out this administration's extreme anti-gun policies. This damages the cooperative relationship between firearm retailers, who are on the front line of preventing illegal straw purchases of firearms, and the ATF, who enforces laws to safeguard our communities. Now, this is really important. If enacted into legislation, the Firearms Act would do the following. 1, it creates a safe harbor for FFLs to self-report violations so they can correct any accidental errors. 2, requires the ATF to work collaboratively with FFLs to fix violations and help avoid future violations. 3, addresses the willfulness issue by defining it to mean a voluntary intentional violation of a known legal duty achieved through specific intent or deliberate planning. It excludes previous conduct that creates a rebuttal if the conduct is not willful. That one is really important because, as you recall, the ATF added 3 new criteria to determine what was willful, and one of the criteria is, well, if you you've always been a good FFL in the past. You obviously know the laws, so you did this willfully, and therefore we're going to yank your license. The bill would also, 4, allows for direct judicial review of license revocations to avoid the ATF from serving as the prosecutor, judge, and jury, which is exactly what the ATF would love. Now, just to give you an idea of what this presidential administration is doing to the FFL industry, in 2023, 157 FFLs had their licenses revoked, and an additional 80 just gave them up in lieu of having to go through the hassle of having to defend that license. That is over 230 FFLs that have been shut down just last year by the Biden administration. When you see some of the other legislation that's kicking around, such as California Penal Code 26806, or up here in Washington, House Bill 2118, there is clearly an all-out war going on the FFL industry. This is all an effort to disarm you, the lawful and responsible gun-owning America, and it is Jody Ernst's bill that might actually save the FFL's industry from this insanity. Okay, once again, it's Senate Bill 3812. It's sponsored by Iowa Senator Jody Ernst. We'll go ahead and link it up down below so that you guys can geek out on it. This is a wonderful piece of legislation. Call your legislators up today and tell them to support Senate Bill 3812. Listen, if you got any other questions about this, or anything else related to what's left of our Second Amendment rights, you guys should know how to get a hold of Washington Gun Law by now. If you don't, that's okay. That information is down there in the description box as well. And then finally, let's everyone remember that part of being the lawful and responsible gun owner, like we talk about all the time here, is to know what the law is in every situation, how it applies to you in any instance that you may find yourself. From beautiful Spokane, Washington, thanks for watching. Stay safe.